And time now for the press review, and for that I'm joined here in the studio by Solange Moujane. Hello, Solange.
Hi, Annette.
Now, no doubt, the major headline of the day, the talking point across the globe, is the disappearance of that exiled Saudi journalist, and also the fact that the US President Donald Trump says, despite all this, he sees no reason to cut off arms dealing with Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, after the U.S. president made those comments to reporters, Vox essentially said that Donald Trump had just put a price tag on Jamal Khashoggi's head. Trump said that while regrettable, his disappearance and possible murder are not worth the loss of arms deal contracts that could be coming for the U.S. Now, Trump hopes to sell $110 billion in weapons to Saudi Arabia, but it's widely believed that that figure is a gross overestimation, basically a wish list that won't happen. Nonetheless, Vox argues that, quote, if you thought Donald Trump was serious about punishing Saudi Arabia, then think again. But at the same time, some in the U.S. are fighting for some sort of stronger response or sanctions for the possible human rights abuse. Namely, in Congress, a Democratic senator has joined other congressmen and women to say that there are ways to sanction the Saudi government if the murder investigation proves true, namely through financial sanctions. Many in Congress are saying that even if Saudi Arabia is a U.S. ally, it still needs to be held responsible for its actions if they did commit murder. And if Washington doesn't do that, then by association, the U.S. could have blood on its hands. To illustrate the point, the Dutch cartoonist Geert has drawn up an image of King Salman handing Trump a pen with a bloody Khashoggi hand.
And that's not the only cartoon, is it, Solange? Because the New York Times is also running a cartoon on this subject as well, aren't they?
Yeah, indeed they are. Chapat asked whether the Crown Prince's reforms were ever really real. After allowing women to drive and opening up cinemas in the kingdom, reforms for journalism and a freer press could have been in the cards. But Chapat says that they'll stay deep underground.
And turning now to Russia and the abortive mission of that Soyuz rocket, a booster failing right after takeoff, forcing the astronaut and the Russian cosmonaut on board to make an emergency landing.
Yeah, it was definitely a very, very bumpy road for the 80 kilometers from space that they had to travel. But the astronauts did survive. Now, naturally, it was big news in Russia. The crash landing was on the front page of Kommersant. The Russian daily tells us that an investigation is underway in order to find out why it failed. But the aborted mission is not good news for the already struggling Russian space industry. Huffington Post wonders if the accident spells the end, at least for now, for the International Space Station, where American and Russian astronauts were headed. The U.S. has already retired its rockets, and new ones won't be ready until next year. With the crash of this one, there is only one Russian vessel left, according to Huffington Post. It is in space and will be taking the 3 astronauts at the station back to Earth, but it probably won't be used again, at least in the short term, because there's a hole in it. So Le Temps tells us that aging material and tense relations with between Russia and the U.S. may spell an end, at least for now, for the space station, which has actually been inhabited for decades.
Okay, now for a little bit of sports. It is Friday, end of the week, of course. French football fans been on the edge of their seats last night as the national team here played Iceland, and the friendly match concluding with a 2-2 draw.
Yeah, Les Bleus were not at their best last night, but thanks to Kylian Mbappé, everything turned out all right for the World Championship team. Mbappé scored 1 goal and helped with the second, which has led the French sports daily L'Équipe to say it was Mbappésque. Now, the famed 19-year-old is actually making headlines outside of France. This week, his face is gracing the international cover of Time magazine, which profiles the 19-year-old's rags-to-riches tale, explaining how he went from growing up in a low-income suburb outside Paris and now makes hundreds of millions of dollars. Le Parisien also marvels at how, in just the past year, the son of 2 immigrants has gone from being a relatively unknown player to a worldwide star.
An extraordinary rise for a French teenager, that's for sure. Now, finally, this is a follow-up to a story that truly just stunned the world when last Friday the artist Banksy just stunned buyers at a Sotheby's auction in London when his work, Girl with a Balloon, auto-destructed just after it was bought for more than £1 million.
Yeah, last week and this whole past week, actually, much of the art world and the media has been talking about this famous painting. But the incident left many wondering, what now? Will the person who bought it keep it? Will she hand out the 1.1 million euros for a shredded painting? And will it be worth more? Well, we now have answers. Le Figaro tells us that the work has been renamed. It's now called Love is in the Bin. And the buyer, who is a European collector, will honor her bid. She said she was shocked at first, but she now feels that she owns a little bit of history.
That's a very low-key, calm response from...
Easy million euros, there you go.
Okay. Well, that's it from Solange. And if you want to take a look at the stories that we've been talking about, you can, of course, head to our website, that being phrase24.com.